Sure, anything. When you bring back that female tonight after dinner, that with him, will you promise to keep it down? Because I can hear everything through these walls. So, you couldn't even talk. It was so embarrassed. I said, Dennis, thank you very much, but I'm going to pass on dinner. Next day, I sat down for breakfast in the morning. There must have been about 42 truckers in the restaurant. They opened up the highway. Jumped in my car, and then I read the side of Dennis's truck. I couldn't believe it. I started laughing. Now, years later, even when I go to a grocery store and I walk down a certain aisle, I smile. Why? Because Dennis was a truck driver for freedom, love. Find the humor. Find the joy in the simple things in life. What people do, the pets do, your kids do. You know, just enjoy life a lot more. And how do you really fire up your life? Well, it was something I wanted. And I wanted to be a mom. I went with a guy for a long, long time. And I bought a house. And I put it on the deed. Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. And you're right. And I had to pay him off. And it cost a lot of money. And then I sat down with George, and I said, George, I rented this house. And he said, you worked really hard for this house. Because I had to make 5 offers to get it. And George came to visit me, and he said, Donna, you're stopping yourself from getting this house. And I said, why? And he said, will this house serve you? And I go, what do you mean? He He said, will it serve you emotionally, financially, mentally, spiritually? And I thought about it. Visible? Yeah. It's got an office, and it's on the south side of the street, it's near the schools, and it's all on another desk. And he said, take down that invisible wall that you put up. That's your fear. And your fear is keeping you from living your life. Well, I took that wall down. I made another offer. It was the fifth offer I made on the house. And finally, Joanne called me and said, the house was mine. With that fear out of the way, and the boyfriend I was paying off, or the ex-boyfriend I was paying off, I said, George, I want a family. What am I going to do? He said, if plan A and B and C doesn't work, go on to plan S, Q, and R. Huh? He said, put in for adoption. You can be a sister. You'll be a great mom. And I promise you, I will be there smoking my cherry-flavored pipe. I put in for adoption. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rejected. I was in my 40s. I was single. And then I got the call. I won. George was diagnosed with cancer. And gone within 2 weeks. I lost nobody. I went in the shower. And I started crying and pounding those tiles. There was only one little soul that could help me. And that was my cat, Sheila. Now, let me tell you, she can do these strategies that I just taught you. That's right. She had to change her mindset about running water because she hated it. And she pulled at that shower door with her paw till she popped it open. And I guarantee you she was saying self-talk to herself like, I like running water, I like running water, I like running water. And she's walking into that shower. And let me tell you, she had a clear focus. And she said, meow, meow. And I looked at her, and first of all, I laughed. She looked like a little drowned rat. That meow meant, let's get out of here now. That's right. She had clear intention. She spoke the truth. And when I wrapped a towel around her knee, I got out, and she looked up at me with her eyes that were blue and they were dripping. You know, like all was water all around her. She was so funny. She seemed to look up at me and say, Mom, take down that invisible wall again. And that kid will come soon. Oh, and by the way, I got some fresh tuna. She was right. I'll never forget that moment because that was an aha moment. What did I do? I meditated that night. The next day I drove to Reno, Nevada. I bought everything for a nursery. Yes, I bought basket and bed and rocking chair. I threw out everything in my guest room and I made it a nursery. I did not know 2 years later that my girlfriends are all calling each other saying, she is nuts. Can you believe it? She doesn't have a child. But I believe if you don't get rid of the clutter in your life, emotionally, mentally, physically, how can you make room for change? hate it when they put that on you? Yep, you bought the dress. Remember this, the dress, because
in, so it
Okay,
should be
so
good.
I'm going to end. I'm going
Yep.
to leave me.
She's a little troublemaker. She's mischievous. But what has she done for my daughter? And everyone she comes in contact with. She's like a little light beam. She is so happy. She is so joyful. She helped me believe in humanity and in hope that we will have a good future. Power up your life. Develop your inner power of leadership, and you will take a journey that you never imagined. It will be magical. It was my honor to be your presenter. Now you have an assignment. Choose 3 of the pearls of wisdom or insight you glean from this presentation and apply them to your life. And watch magic happen. Also, please go to my website, listed below, and download.
Hello.
Yeah, it is picking. Calming tides. You deserve some relaxation.
Start your video. Once you start your video, it'll pick up your feed, and then you can turn this on.
Fire up your life and ignite your personal leadership.
Way off, just let me know. Okay, I'll try and do it. Oh, no, you know what? You have no reason to apologize. I mean, this is
So did you see your
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're just allowing everyone to transition into the breakouts at this time. We'll start in a few minutes. Um, oh yeah, I can't make her
I think you can hear me now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to keep talking. You can hear me. Fantastic. Talk about grace under pressure here. Thank you all. This is the world that we're living in. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Heidi Everett. I'm President and CEO of Cypress Partners. Before we dive in, I just want to also thank Uninet, our sponsor for this session today. Would like to give personal appreciation to Kieran Ali, who is representing Uninet. So this is a great opportunity for us just to continue to take advantage of your commitment to yourself, to actually take the time to be focused on what are some of the personal goals that you have as you consider your journey as a leader. So the first question that I would like for you to place in your mind as you think about our time together is, who will you become? As we all face this unprecedented time, living through a pandemic, many of you all are juggling multiple demands at home. Who is it that you hope to become as you think about your vision for yourself? And as you think about your immediate short-term goals, start to build a vision for yourself, a visual picture of what is your legacy. So in our work together at Cypress Partners, we ask many of the individuals that we support through leadership development and through coaching to really start to develop a future sense or a future vision board, essentially, of who do you want to become in the future. As we prepare for that, we'd like to start with a first exercise, and we're going to allow you to use this time together to reflect on what are essentially the attributes and what are some of the goals that you would like to achieve as you look back on your life. So in the chat, Lori Fuchs, you'll have to scroll up here in the chat. There's a document that you can actually download, and it has a series of questions that I would like for you to consider. And if you're unable to access that document, I have the slides here. You can do a quick screenshot. So we're gonna kind of take a trip into the future and really encourage you to think back on what is your legacy. If you were to kind of serve as someone reviewing your life, what would you want people to say about you? Just think that you've retired. You are now in a wonderful community, enjoying all the fruits of your labor. Your coworkers, families, your friends, and your neighbors have actually assembled to celebrate your career and your life and contributions. So on that worksheet, or if you have a sticky note next to you or just a piece of paper, or feel free to just jot it down on your cell phone, I'd like for you to list 3 things you would like people to say about you. So it can be anything about your work, your accomplishments, your contributions, or the type of persona that you hope people will describe when they think about you. So this is the first step in self-awareness for you to cast this vision of what is your legacy. So I'll give everyone about 5 minutes or so to just take those notes down. List 3 things you would like to have said about you as you think about your legacy. Okay, so keep that handy because we're going to reference this as we continue throughout the rest of this session together. So this is going to be your vision. This is your beacon that you're thinking about as you consider what is this legacy that you're hoping to achieve, what accomplishments do you have in your mind. And now what we'd like to do is kind of go through the process of speaking about a few things. We're going to talk about motivation, the importance of self-awareness, and then from there end with growth mindset. And once we get through those exercises, we'll actually go back and revisit your legacy. Motivation. So when we think about motivation, many times we think about what gets us going, what gets us excited. I'd like for you to think a little bit about the difference between external and internal motivation. And I would like to really speak to the differences between external and internal motivation through a story. So there's a story that you may have heard, but think of a Cocker Spaniel, a really excited dog that's looking out its window every single day and notices the squirrel. The squirrel is constantly going up and down the tree and the dog is looking at it. This is its target. I want that squirrel, says the Cocker Spaniel. So eventually, the dog gets outside and starts to create this habit of chasing the squirrel every single day, and is unable to actually get the squirrel. And so this becomes the dog's daily routine, this external motivator of getting up, getting out, and chasing the squirrel. So eventually, on a bright and sunny day, the Cocker Spaniel captures the squirrel. And then the dog wakes up the next day and is defeated. There's nothing else to motivate this dog to get back up, to get back excited, and really try to determine what is its focus for the day. So this squirrel is your external motivation. But what we want to focus in is on this internal driver, something that you were able to self-direct to get you motivated and moving and working closer and closer to your goals. In order to do that, we're going to dive in a little bit about behaviors, intent, and then ultimately motivation, and how this is connected to actually conflict and growth mindset. So when we think about motivation, these are the 4 key concepts we'd like for you to take away. So behavior, action, how you engage, how you communicate, that's driven by an internal motivation. And you can actually show various different strengths as it is exhibited through behavior based on the type of environment that you're placed in and the type of motivators that influence you or that you face on every single engagement, interaction. It's important for you to know that people are motivated by a blend of 3 different things: performance, people, and process. If you're someone like me, you may be more performance motivated. You're looking at results. There are some people that are more motivated by social interaction, by people. Some others may be really excited about process, keeping order and structure. And it's many times the case where you could be a blend, and based on the type of environment that you in, you may exhibit different motivators, more performance, more people, or more process, based on the type of environment that you're working in. And also know that motivation changes in conflict. So you'll want to know when you're in a neutral state, what are you primarily internally motivated by? And then if you're faced with a challenge, how does your motivation change? So we'll go through these different scenarios together. So on the left-hand block here, you'll see that there's behaviors, and then how behaviors are influenced. They're influenced by intentions and motivations. So this is what you understand. You are clearly able to say, I'm trying to accomplish and achieve a promotion, or I want to start a business, or I'm trying to create more downtime for myself at home. So there are various different motivators that are going to influence your behaviors, and your very specific intentions on how you achieve these goals will also influence your behaviors. But when we think about how we interact with others, their view is only of your behavior. They are unaware of your intentions. They have no idea what your motivations are unless you have gone through self-awareness to clearly communicate and understand your intentions, and as well as your motivations. So right there, you see that there's a conflict of what you're dealing with internally and then what others may see externally. So this is based on the concept of the motivational value system. And it goes into how we are all driven to perform and how our behavior influences what we do on how motivations influences our behaviors on a day-to-day basis. You'll see that based on your motivating style or your indicators, it's quite possible that your management style may lean towards these various types of modalities. You may be someone who is motivated by people, and your style may be one that is more coaching or mentoring, or you may be someone that's very results oriented, and you may take a leadership or management style that is very directional, or one that really leads through examples and really encourages others to follow your lead. So now with your legacy in mind, we'd like to take this step down to really encourage you to go through this self-awareness journey so that you can really start to understand yourself. So what I would like for you to do is go back into that worksheet and take some time to go through these sets of questions. This will give you some insight on quite possibly what your motivational value system is. So think about your current environment. Look back into some of the work experiences that you've had, some of the volunteer engagements that you support. What strengths do you bring to a team? Are you the one that tends to organize all the meetings, manages all the documents? Are you the first one to say, hey, I'll organize a social event? Are you more of the person that leans into taking care of others, making sure that the culture of the team, of the organization is intact? Or are you someone that's always asking the question, what's the objective here? What are we trying to achieve? What are our goals? So identify what strengths you normally bring to a team or an organization. Secondly, let's be honest here. What are some of the challenges that you face when you're working with others, or that others may have communicated with you? So think back on possibly some of your performance reviews. What are some of the areas where there are some common themes on opportunities for you to grow? Are you someone that may need to communicate more? Are you known to be a very strong individual contributor, but not necessarily a team player? And then thirdly, think about some of the words or phrases that people say about you. So this can be a great opportunity for you to connect back to the legacy exercise. Do people say that you're giving, that you're very focused? What are some of those words that you hear constantly as people describe you and your work ethic, your ability to bring teams together? What are some of those things? And then lastly, let's think about what really gets you excited. When people give you a compliment, what really do you receive well? So what's the best compliment you could receive from someone else? Some people just get extremely embarrassed when they're asked to be in the spotlight and they're lauded in a big group of individuals. You might be someone that just likes a handwritten card. So this gives you a little bit of insight on how you move in the world and how do you balance these internal and external motivations and what type of environment you can really thrive in. So I'll just give you a few minutes to finish answering these questions. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to thank Lori Fuchs and Kimberly Prescott. They are managing the chat. And as we get through the content here, we'll definitely have some opportunity for Q&A. So thanks for your flexibility today. So keep working on those questions. Just a few more minutes. Fantastic. So keep being as specific as possible. This is really important. I love the fact that we're still here today working on yourself. So think about this as a gift you've given to yourself to really reflect, really turn off the distractions for the day, and take the time to invest in self-awareness so that you can really determine how focused your goals are and what specifically you're hoping to achieve as you grow as a leader. Okay, let's move on here. So developing self-awareness, this is a practice. One thing that I really encourage all of you to do is start to take the practice of noticing. How are you behaving? What's really driving that behavior? What causes you stress during the day? What causes you possibly to shut down? And then inversely, what gets you motivated? What gets you energized? When you leave a meeting or get off a meeting, now that we're on Zoom constantly or online, what are those meetings that just get you energized and keep you talking or that you want to stay on and have more of those engaged moments? Are you someone that is a connector, that possibly because of the difficulty that we're living in now with social isolation, you're missing that connection? what does that mean about you? What type of investments can you place into yourself to make sure that you're working in an environment that really, really supports your desires and your needs? And the next set of questions that's so important, it's just not noticing how you're behaving and also what drives that behavior, but what works? It's not only important to understand what your behaviors are and what drives success or where your challenges exist, but if you exhibit certain behaviors of engaging other people, having those tough conversations, start to think about what are some specific examples that have really led to success. So if you're a type of person who enjoys conflict, why does that work for you? And is there a particular style that you put in place, particularly when you're working with others, that is helpful? So again, this is this practice of really going down to the root cause of who you are when you think about what motivates you as a leader and what drives you to really engage. What are the behaviors that you can use to define you as your own leadership style? In this journey to self-awareness, it's so important that your main focus is to focus on what you can change. As we think about developing ourselves, it's so easy to say, well, Heidi did this wrong. If she would just get it together, things would be so much better. But this job of really investing in yourself and becoming a better person is really an opportunity for you to avoid the stereotypes. It's going within. It's understanding and accepting the fact that people have different work styles and are motivated by different things. My husband always jokes me because he knows, oh, when you're going to go speak, I know you're going to tell a story about me. And so we're very, very different. So I apologize, honey, but I'm very into, I'm motivated by performance and results. And my husband, he loves process and detail. So it's a wonderful balance for us as a family, and we help each other out in many ways. But I know there are times when he's asking questions or telling a story where I'm like, we get to the point, where are we going? But through my journey of self-awareness, I've learned that he's motivated by different things. And I'm the one that needs to give him information so that our conversations are fruitful and we together can have a joyful experience together. So make sure that when you are interacting with individuals, you're maybe even developing others, or even considering how to maybe mend a broken relationship, focus on two things: the understanding that someone else is motivated and will show up in a world much different than you. And oh my goodness, they may have different interests than you. And then secondly, what can you do to make the actual conversation or relationship a more effective one? So I always ask people to show their awareness of others' strengths or motivators by having a different conversation starter. For instance, you may say, you may be more aware now that someone is very process oriented or someone is very social. So as you work with them to maybe complete a particular task, your question will be different. You may say, hey, Alan, I believe that the social interaction is really important to you. Can you maybe let the team know some activities that we can work on together while you lead, that can make sure that the team is comfortable with another, that we're building a good culture? Ask them. And then if that person says, oh yeah, I would love that, just think about how more engaged they will be and how all of a sudden you're confirming different motivators and how different behaviors can be then supported. Or if someone is very into structure and process, asking that person and really lifting up their strengths and saying, I don't know if I have the best expertise. I'm only focusing on the objectives right now. What am I missing in the process? How could we approach this differently? And all of a sudden, that person is motivated intrinsically already to stay engaged in a different way and not feeling forced to work within your style or your expectations. And this is, again, reinforcing this concept of the impact of filters. We all show up in the world with these filters on, our desires and our motivators and our intent. So many of you may have joined today thinking, I want if you're very process oriented, I want 5 key takeaways on what I need to do to be a better leader. And we have some of that here, but then there are other people that unfortunately are kind of missing the social interaction. So we'll have opportunity for you to stay engaged and chat as well, where others may want more specific objectives. What do I need to do to be more effective? And we have these exercises for you to work on. So make sure that you understand your life is being filtered through the lenses of your motivators, your intentions, and it's very much the case where your filters may be quite different than others. So just being cognizant of that will really change how you show up in the world and work with others and your expectations that you place on others. All right, now let's get to conflict. So I love to say in our work, in our company, we talk a lot about not only individual change, but organizational change. And in organizational change, there is always this concept of resistance. And no, most people do not like resistance. Most people see opposition as a game changer in a negative way, that it's something that it's going to really bring the team down. But I really encourage you to accept opposition. Push through resistance, because that's when the growth occurs. And you want to welcome honest, candid conversation so that you can get past roadblocks. There's a lot of research out there about dysfunctional teams. And one of the major dysfunctions of teams is really these conversations that are only at the surface. No one's really willing to have those hard conversations about what the true challenge is. Or they're not willing to get into these engagements of what is the true problem? How do we get to the root cause? So just by changing your mindset around seeing opposition as an opportunity, you will open up so many opportunities for great conversations so that you can be more results oriented and get clarity around where real problems exist. But I want you to make sure that you understand that opposition or resistance is not the same thing as conflict. When we think about conflict, another paradigm shift here, think about conflict not necessarily about someone being against you. It's really about possibly your personal feelings, and the research says this, about your feeling of not being accepted, not being heard. It's really a personal perception of self-worth. Like, I know in reading this type of research and our studies around motivation and conflict, this was a game changer for me. Because when we think about conflict, we think about clashing. We think about someone disagrees with me and it's their fault. I need to convince them to come to my side. But honestly, it's an internal job, folks, as it mostly is. It's about your self-perception of thinking, oh my gosh, am I wrong? What did I say? And why do they not believe me? So that alone should make you pause to think about relationships that may be in a negative state, conversations that you have with people where you don't feel you feel misunderstood, or we've all been there, folks, right? It's that email, the tone sounds like they're yelling at you, but they're really just trying to get an email out quickly. So conflict is not necessarily about the other person's feelings about you. It's about your self-perception of feeling that you've been threatened, or that your opinion or your self-worth is at risk. So just like we talked about motivators and the people, process, and performance motivators, conflict also has a similar type of value system. So when you face a conflict, you may be on a completely other side in terms of the motivating value system. So while you may show up when things are going well, you may show up as someone who's very performance oriented. But I know for me, when I face conflict, all of a sudden I go straight to process. So I start to want to determine, how do I analyze this? What is really the issue here? I want to establish order. So instead of pushing and driving and asserting myself, I start to analyze every single thing. And honestly, many times I'll get into analysis paralysis and I'll get stuck. So think about those times where you are faced with a certain conflict. And if you are able to show behaviors that are consistent in times where conflict does not exist, or do you notice that you are someone that shows a different type of behavior? For instance, if you're a very social person, when things are going well, but all of a sudden you face conflict, do you continue to accommodate people? Maybe sometime you tend to give up a little bit too much, you concede, or do you all of a sudden show so much assertion that people are thinking, like, what's going on, Heidi? Like, you're such a different person when you're upset, and it's very clear, and they're unable to engage with you because you're inconsistent in their view with your behavior. So just having this time to think about different examples and scenarios that you faced, you'll start to understand really how you're motivated, and then how conflict may, quite honestly, turn a 180 in your behavior, and or really, what do you need to get past the conflict, to get back to the neutral state? One thing that we love to share is your behavior in conflict, and understanding that in order to get a resolution, there are 3 different stages that you really should consider. It's best when you're at the first stage of conflict, so you're just introduced to potential trigger. You want to try to address that issue as soon as possible, because at that stage, you're more likely to focus on the 3 different aspects of conflict resolution. You're still open to focus not only on yourself and the problem, but you're still willing to engage with others. But as you continue to feel more defensive and less heard, the stage 2 conflict you start to think less about others, and you're just trying to get things done and focus on the objective at hand and really try to protect yourself. And then, as you can imagine, as the tension starts to increase, you feel less safe psychologically. There is really there's a very low likelihood of the resolution occurring, because at that point, you're just in self-protection, self-defense mode. So really, again, as you think about behaviors and assess the different examples that you've worked through, particularly around conflict, really try to get to a point where you can gather data, you can either have space, or you can have support, so that you can stay at stage 1 in the conflict, where you are open to making sure that you're not only focusing on taking care of yourself and the problem, but you're still including others' interests as well, so that the conflict can be resolved. So these are some questions that you can actually ask yourself to understand your own personal conflict sequence. Take an example. You know, I have my kids are actually here sitting in the lobby. You know, a lot of us working parents here, we're trying to make it all happen. So of course, my first conflict is thinking about my 12-year-old son. You know, he's entering those teenage years. He doesn't want to talk to me, it seems like, anymore. And I'm always trying to get him, clean your room, do this, do that. And so what I need to do is write down, why do I feel it's so necessary to just control? So what's going on here? What am I feeling right now? Like, I want this done immediately. What did I do? I put my requirements on him. How might I manage myself differently? Honestly, I need to make sure that he's owning this, that he's owning the action of really cleaning his room and making him accountable in a different way. And what do I need from others? That's so important, because conflict, again, it's all about, we tend to think it's such an external thing, but it's such an internal job. What I'm wanting is just a relationship. I'm wanting to feel heard. So I need to understand, okay, I can do that in other ways. I need to make sure that the real goal here is that he is building independence. He's understanding the importance of keeping things up to clean and keeping things in order. So I need to work with him in a different way. So just going through these questions allows you to kind of take a break, catch your breath, and really try to get to the root cause of what is the true conflict here, and why, and where am I in that conflict sequence? Am I focusing so much on the other person? Am I making sure that only process is important here? How are you showing up when you're faced with conflict? And just answering these questions, particularly in a stage 1 conflict, you're going to be able to quickly have a mind shift and understand, how can I actually resolve this issue? So here are some just takeaways that we would love to share with you as we think about conflicts and as it relates to your own motivational value system. But understand what triggers really set you off. If you're someone who loves to be very organized, I'm sure it's your eyes, you just go to the back of your head and you're just rolling your eyes and people come unorganized. but that person, it might just be very creative and really enjoys thinking and brainstorming and interacting with other people. So being aware that this is someone else's motivation style and they show up differently, making sure that you know that you're working through filters when you work with others and not to put your type of behavior style onto others. And always remember, I didn't touch on this earlier, but entering in conflict can be a choice. And it's that internal job again. So take the time to ask yourself these questions in your mind to really understand what is really happening here. What is the root cause? What is the problem that I'm really dealing with? And many times you'll understand it's a change in perspective that's needed. It's maybe getting more information, but also it's really understanding and asking yourself, what do I really need in this moment to really give yourself a different frame in the conflict? Okay. So here are our key takeaways as we think about behavior and how our 4 takeaways and how it actually is motivated by behavior. So behavior is driven by motivation, as we've talked about. I'll go to the bottom. Motivation then changes in conflict. You almost become a different person when you're faced with conflict. Going to the second takeaway, you have different strengths that you can use to produce results. So as you think about the MBS that we showed earlier, think about how you can work around that wheel. How can you make sure that you're strengthening different areas around engaging with people, that social component? What can you do to be more organized or more process oriented? And then also, how can you balance that with the performance perspective as well? And that shows, the third point there shows you that all those motivators are a blend of all those 3 things. And you show up differently based on the environment that you're in. Okay, let's scoot on over to growth mindset. In order for you to continue on this journey of self-awareness, as now that you've thought a little bit about what motivates you and how you show up in conflict, we really now want to give you this framework on how to continue on in this journey, because it's difficult and it takes a lot of commitment. But one thing that's so helpful as you think about this journey of self-discovery and leadership development is having a growth mindset. Some of you may be familiar with this concept of fixed versus growth mindset. It was really started in the education industry with students in education, really led by researcher Dr. Carol Dweck. She's world-renowned, has done tons of research, and I'm so glad now that this concept is becoming more and more widely heard and accepted in the business world. So mindset is about this perception that your intelligence is not fixed, that it's something that you can change and grow over time. So there may be people, you hear it quite a bit, oh, I'm not a good writer, I'm just not gonna go there, or I'm horrible in science, or I'm not a good dancer, or that's just something I don't do. Or you may hear it in language like, oh, we've always done it that way, so let's just not waste our time, this is just easier to do. So we really want you to focus on the growth mindset. So here's an example that I'd like to share here, and because as adults, our experiences shape how we interact in the world and interact with others. And so just recently in the pandemic, my daughter and my children, my husband and I, we started going on these walks and just to get some exercise. And there's a part in our neighborhood where there is a lot of gravel that's just broken. So it creates a lot of bumps if you're riding your bike in particular. So here I am trying to keep up with my 9-year-old daughter, and there's this part that she just loves. It's so broken, tons of bumps. And I hear her say, this is my favorite part. It bumps me out of my seat. I love it. And so, of course, in the career field that I'm in, I just take that immediate analogy to how this question comes into my mind. When do we become scared to embrace challenges? So as a young girl, she sees these bumps, these challenges, opportunities to take on, like, bring on the bumps. I want to conquer them. Whereas an adult, something happens, different experiences in your life make you more risk averse. If you work with a challenging boss, for instance, you may say, oh, I'm just not going to go there. I'm not going to have those conversations. I've been here before. So ask yourself, when do you exhibit this fixed mindset and not take the opportunity to push and to grow. So growth mindset is really seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. So as we think about comparing fixed mindset is when you believe your basic abilities or aptitudes, so intelligence and talents are static. You need to constantly receive validation from others. You're very sensitive when someone points out a potential failure or an opportunity to improve. You take it very personally, because for you, it's about how it's viewed as someone putting you down because you don't see opportunity to grow. You're very vulnerable to criticism and setbacks, as you see there on that fourth bullet. And these individuals reveal themselves when they want to quit or avoid something that is challenging or unfamiliar, because they just feel that there's just no benefit in trying the hard things. There's no benefit in really learning from the challenge. So as you can imagine, for growth mindset, what I always like to say is the growth mindset focuses on the word yet. It's always saying, I'm just not good at running yet. And then really taking the yet and what you want to do to figure out, what do I need to do to actually meet the yet? How do I become a better runner? How do I become better in my eating habits? How do I become a better communicator? So understanding that there are no limits. There's only opportunity and there's only learning in life. So there's this commitment with growth mindset, and this applies to you in your leadership journey, is understanding no one's perfect. Life is a constant learning laboratory. You're going to be challenged, but those challenges should not be viewed as setbacks. Really try to figure out and ask yourself, what can I learn here? Where is the opportunity to explore? What can I experiment? And how can I experiment? And where do I need to be stretched? And one thing that's so critical too is making sure that when you receive feedback from others, that it's not a personal judgment against you. It's really receiving that information just as data. It's a fact, it's someone else's perception. What is the truth in that feedback that I can take away and actually apply to myself to continue to improve? So we have a few more minutes here, and I want to make sure that I get to the actual chats and answer some of your questions. There's a growth mindset activity handout that I really would like for you to take the time to actually go through. And it'll give you some insight on starting to connect your legacy and what are some of the potential barriers that are getting you to that actual vision that you've put out for yourself. So what you'll want to do is take the time, hopefully you have a journaling practice in the morning or in evenings or at the end of the week or the beginning of the week, where you're reflecting on what are my goals, how am I doing and actually achieving them. And these 5 questions will help you really assess how you're working on achieving those goals. So the next thing here, I'm not sure if I'll be able to, oh, okay, it does look like I can press this video. So one thing that I want to encourage you all to remember is only you can hold yourself back. So stop holding yourself back. I'm hoping this video will actually show up here. So this is a post that I saw that was so hilarious on Instagram. But just think of yourself as this young boy here, holding on to the slide, not letting go. Just think about how much more you can enjoy if you would just kind of see the opportunity in this experience and really have fun and let go and take on this growth mindset and achieve some of the goals that you have for you. All right. And I think that is all we have. I wanted to get back to the slides here one last time. Okay. Thank you. And just to take the time to say thank you. And also, if any of you are interested, because I know that this is such a major change in how we were hoping to engage with you personally. So if you are interested, what we would do is follow up with some more engaging opportunities. If you would text Embrace Change, one word, to 66866, what we would like to do is offer some free workshops where we will take some of these exercises and work together in a group in a more extended period of time. So thank you so much. And I would love to I see the chat box blinking. I want to make sure that we can have the opportunity to answer some questions here. Let's see. All right, let's grab a few chats. Excuse me as I kind of look down. All right. Lori, were there any questions that you think we may want to pose to the whole group? I'd be happy to answer any. Okay, fantastic. So if there are no questions, I just want to end by saying that before you leave this session, please remember to download your certificate to get your continuing education credit. And be sure to look on the landing page link in both the chat and the QA so you're able to return to your next session. So now you'll have a break until 11:50. So this is a great time for you to visit the exhibitor hall and browse other sponsor information. So 11:50 is when you'll convene again. And this was an absolute pleasure. Best of luck on your personal leadership journey. And thank you so much. Thank you. And if you don't mind staying, just 1 second, please.
So we just want to make sure that our sponsors have an opportunity to bring some remarks. And so I'm going to ask Kieran Ali from Uninet if she would bring a few remarks for us at this time. Kieran?
Thanks so much. I'm unmuted. Oh, so excited. Heidi, thank you so much for an amazing presentation. You truly are a Kate of all spades. If you guys check out her LinkedIn profile, you'll see she's been a former military officer. She's worked for nonprofits. She's worked in private equity. So she's definitely got the perspective to help us all grow. I know that I'm going to be taking away a lot from her session. A little bit about me. I'm sorry that we couldn't get the mic right at the beginning of the session. I'm a reformed compliance litigator. I now work for Uninet, who some of you may know is the leading project-based ERP for businesses in the 10 to 1,000 region. Any of you that are GovCons or work with GovCons, I hope to cross paths with you. There is information in the link that was posted to the chat. We are also available at uninet.com, and I work extensively in Howard County and Prince George's County. So I hope to see you all in real life sometime soon. Otherwise, I'll drop my email in the chat box if any of you have any questions about government ERPs, accounting to replace QuickBooks or Sage or Deltek. My email is in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. And with that, everyone, we will take a break. It's now about 11:30. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have questions. So I'm going to actually turn the screen back to Heidi.
Thank you. Thanks, Leonardo. And thank you so much, Karen. We have one question. I'm so glad to see it. So I thank Lori and Kimberly for helping me through this. So the question that was posed in the chat is, how do we move from fixed to growth mindset? I would say that it's definitely depends on your individual motivating value system. So if you're someone that's motivated, for instance, I'll just take structure, is understanding how possibly structure is limiting your behavior. And in language of leadership development, what we call strengths that may actually be getting in your way are overdone strengths. So if you're someone that is relying on your strength and now it's possibly kind of serving as a barrier for you to have more flexibility, trying to find ways, for instance, where you can rely on others to exhibit a similar strength as you, and then trying to determine when you give that, say, a task for someone to maybe organize a meeting, for instance, instead of you taking it on, what are some other things that you can do that allows you to strengthen a weakness? So it is a lot of times, first of all, that self-recognition of where an overdone strength is exhibited. And this is many of the case for, I know many of you here in this session today who are more senior leaders. So an overdone strength sometimes is viewed as something that other people say, oh, this is great, this has gotten you this far in your life, and no one is really coming back to you to say, as actually, it is actually, when it's overdone, it is causing a barrier for your performance. So it's almost looking at your strengths and figuring out what are some areas that you can actually grow in, and focus on to develop. Any other questions? One more. Okay, great. I love it. In the chat? Okay. Sorry, let me close the. Okay, if you don't mind, Kimberly, that'd be great. Yes, and I think it's let me repeat the question first. If there's a team member and they don't seem motivated, what are some things that you can do to help this individual? I don't know if any of you know Brene Brown, but I am a big Brene Brown fan. One thing that is so important is this commitment to transparency and honesty. So a quote that I always rely on is clear is kind. And asking that person, what is getting in the way? And asking them, what can we do to really help you? And having those honest conversations that sometimes people don't feel they have the agency to start or initiate, but opening the door for these conversation starters that we started and said before. So this person might actually be in an environment that is really heightening his or her behavior to really focus and work in a conflict state. So in this conflict state, this individual may have shut down and is working in kind of self-preservation and is feeling it's much more safe to not engage with others. So ask this person, tell me about this environment for you. What's working, what's not working? We would love for you to be engaged. What do you think is the best way that you can be engaged? And it's having those honest, sometimes hard and difficult conversations. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It was wonderful to have you all here, and I hope we can continue the conversation. Please, thank you to Kieran at Uninet, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.